All right, we're now going to have a debate over the next 20 minutes. We're going to have these debates every couple of weeks between a member of the Labor Party and a member of the Liberal Party in the lead-up to the federal election, which is, of course, supposed to occur on the 14th of September. Representing the Labor Party, the member for Corio, Richard Marles. Mr Marles, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tom. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for coming in here. And representing the Liberal Party, the member for Higgins, Kelly O'Dwyer. Kelly, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Tom.
Actually, I should call you Ms O'Dwyer.
Sing a bit, Kelly.
I answer to most things.
Firstly, Richard, a difficult day for the Labor Party yesterday. I watched you, I think it was on Late Line last night, and as the former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd has just indicated, you were one of his valued supporters. Is it difficult being a Kevin Rudd supporter in the Labor Party at the moment?
Well, yesterday was obviously a difficult day for the Labor Party. I've obviously personally had better days in politics than I did yesterday. But you know, if you take a stand, you accept that there are going to be consequences that come with it. Sometimes you're not going to be in the majority, and that's part of being in a team, and I understand that as well. And I think the thing is that sincere people with sincere views can come to different positions, and that's what happened yesterday. And I'm very happy now to back in the position of the team, and that is very much now behind Julia Gillard. And I think Kevin has said it himself today. What is very clear to come out of yesterday is that the idea of a future Kevin Rudd Prime Ministership has ended. It ended yesterday. And that does afford us the opportunity to remove the lead of division from our saddle and move forward through the next election, which we just have to do to contest this against Tony Abbott and Kelly.
Kelly O'Dwyer for the Liberal Party, what do you think? Is Kevin Rudd, are his leadership ambitions absolutely finished now?
No, I don't think they are. And I think as much as Richard may like to draw a line in the sand over yesterday, because, frankly, it's not a day that they would want to look back on with much fondness. And Richard himself paid an incredibly heavy price for it, because he's no longer a parliamentary secretary in this current government. We continue to see the dysfunction writ large today as well. In the last 24 hours, 8 key members of the Gillard government have been lost. First, we saw Simon Crean yesterday go because he was sacked. Richard Marles resigned after he went public with his declaration in support of Kevin Rudd. We have subsequently seen Chris Bowen fall on his sword. Today, Martin Ferguson fall on his sword. Kim Carr, plus all three whips have also fallen on their sword. And the reason that they have done that is because this is a government that is incredibly divided. It is incredibly divided, and it is focused entirely on itself, not on the future of our country, the aspirations of the people. And this is why we know, because for so long as Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard are in the same parliament, there will always be this internal conflict going on within the Labor Party.
All right, thank you, the two of you, for your opening statements. We've got news headlines coming up in a moment. We'll take some calls after that. 96900 693 outside Melbourne, 13 13 32. If you'd like to ask a question of either Richard Marles, the federal member for Corio and member of the Labor Party, or Kelly O'Dwyer, federal member for Higgins and the Liberal Party, do give us a call now, 96900 693. Just something to both of you. The drawing the line in the sand is something that gladiators used to do when they actually said, cross this line and you shall have to fight me. I just wonder if the meaning has changed a bit over time.
Well, maybe it has, now you said that, but maybe what we're doing is drawing the line in the sand between Labor and Liberal very clearly now.
Indeed, and there will be a battle to be fought there. It is 4:30. Calls for Richard Marles and Kelly O'Dwyer in a moment, 96900 693. It is now time for news headlines with 3AW's very own gladiator, Tony Tardio. 23 to 5, we've got a calls for Richard Marles and Kelly O'Dwyer, the first of our pre-election debates, Labor versus Liberal, 96900 693. Kelly, if I could just ask you, word has it that the Liberal members of Parliament, such as yourself, are quite pleased at what happened yesterday. You've still got Julia Gillard as the Prime Minister. She's not very popular with the people. Were you pleased with the result of yesterday's Labor leadership ballot?
Look, I wasn't pleased with anything about yesterday, and I think any right-thinking Australian wouldn't be. We saw a parliament in complete chaos, and we saw a government in complete chaos. That's not something I take any delight in. So no, I can quite categorically say to you, it certainly doesn't please me.
Richard Marles, was yesterday an example of a government, a parliament in complete chaos?
Well, it's pretty hard to argue that yesterday was an edifying spectacle from the point of view of the Labor Party, and we've had other days like that, obviously, in the last year.
It was quite interesting from the perspective of doing talkback radio, I must say. But
well, look, I think what was important yesterday from the point of view of the Labor Party is that an issue, a long-running issue, was resolved, and it is now behind us. And what we've certainly got to do is make sure that we put those kinds of distractions and that noise behind us now, so that we start telling the very good story that we have to tell.
But Richard, it's not actually behind you at the moment. I mean, we heard from Simon Crean yesterday, who was concerned not only about the leadership, but he said the government was heading in the wrong direction. He was concerned that the government wasn't governing for all. We heard today from Martin Ferguson, who said that the leadership wasn't the only problem, but there was deep problems from within the Labor Party with respect to processes and direction. So I don't think we can at all say that with any confidence, and that's what deeply concerns us. And we also saw yesterday, for the very first time, that there was a simple majority yesterday, not an absolute majority, but the three independents actually sided with the coalition on a no-confidence motion.
Well, it wasn't a no-confidence motion.
It was a procedural motion. Procedural motion to be put around no confidence, and this is quite unprecedented. And obviously, with all of the other things that have happened in the Parliament just now, of course, this hasn't been discussed, but this is quite a significant shift in the Parliament that happened this week.
Now, two of you, we'd like to go to some calls. Plenty of people want to ask both of you some questions. Jeff, good afternoon.
G'day, guys. How you going?
Good, thank you.
Just want to make just two things. First of all, listening to every ALP MP yesterday, all they talked about was this is good for the party, that nobody's good against Julia. How about doing something right for the country, first of all, which would be a start, and secondly, question for you, Richard, in all these years that Wayne Pond's been treasurer, have we actually delivered a surplus budget?
All right, so Richard, Jeff's questions are addressed to you. So firstly, the first question was your colleagues kept saying everything was good for the party yesterday. Although if it's good for the party, presumably you'll keep doing it each week for us. I'm guessing that's not going to happen. But is the thought of the country at large entering people's heads?
Of course the thought of the country is entering people's heads. And look, if you're looking at yesterday, these are very difficult decisions that people are making in the context of what is in the best interests of the nation. So to suggest that that is not at the foremost of our mind is just not right. But can I say this as well, Tom?
Yes.
You're talking about what have we done for the country? One of the experiences I have had in the last couple of years is I've been travelling around the world doing a foreign affairs portfolio, and I've got a pretty good sense of how Australia is seen from a global point of view. We have the single best economy on the planet, and we have that because of the way this government guided us through the biggest global economic shock since the Great Depression. Now that's doing something for the country. That's hundreds of thousands of jobs. That's hundreds of thousands of families who are better off as a result.
Kelly O'Dwyer, your response?
Well, I'm very happy to answer Jeff's question, and that is Wayne Swan has delivered no budget surpluses. He has consistently delivered deficits. They have added up to more than $172 billion. We heard this week that the gross debt is going to be upwards of around $300 billion. The reason that this...
It's the lowest public debt in the OECD.
No, well, let me just take you up on that point, Richard, because you like to claim credit for the state of the economy. You don't like to take credit for all the deficits and for the gross debt and for the interest payments of around about $9 billion a year, but you like to take credit for the economy. And let me just say this, the last coalition government in 1996 had to repay back $96 billion of Labor debt. It did it. It was able to do that, and not only do that, but provide for the future a $70 billion future fund, a $6 billion higher education endowment fund. It had $20 million as a surplus left in the last budget. So please don't lecture us on being a responsible government and responsible economic managers, because the last time Labor actually delivered a surplus was in 1989.
If you're arguing that during the global economic crisis you should have been running surpluses, we would have seen hundreds of thousands of more people unemployed, and we would have seen our economy go into a serious recession.
All right, we have another question here on a different issue. Andrea, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tom. Look, what really, really upset me in the last 2 weeks was the proposed media changes to the laws for the media in this country. I've travelled the world and I've seen how people desperately want freedom of speech, and people die to get this freedom of speech. And yet in this country, the Labor Party, and this is directed to the Labor member, You people just sat there and you let your senator and your prime minister almost take our freedom away from us.
Well,
I have absolutely, you listen to me, I'm a taxpayer. I have absolutely no faith in you at all. You are hypocrites, two-faced liars. How dare you say you're doing things for the people? You would be happy to sit there and let those laws go through.
Right, Andrea, I'll just let Mr. Miles respond to that. So Senator Conroy, I believe, did want to come in and be able to shut people like me up occasionally, which I'm sure he'd like to do. But Richard Miles, were you really trying to stop free speech?
Andrew is completely entitled to say all that she's just said, and would have been under the proposals that were being put forward, and indeed the kind of hysteria that we saw from the Daily Telegraph in Sydney. They've got a perfect right to be as hysterical as they want to be, and that would have been fine under these laws.
What do you mean, dressing up Senator Conroy as Joseph Stalin?
Well, I've always said you can never go wrong making fun of Stephen Conroy, but the fact of the matter is, and it's fine to sort of be producing campus-like newspapers for Sydney, and that's fun too. But they've got a perfect right to do that, and these laws had nothing to do with that. All we were talking about was putting in place a legislative backing to self-regulation that the print industry sets for itself. Now, that's no different to what happens in Britain, no different to what happens in Finland, which is regarded as the freest place of speech on the planet, no different to what happens in Denmark, one of the top 10 freedom of speech countries in the world. We were doing that, and we were making sure that there was diversity in the media. Now, look, we said if you can't get these issues through, if we can't negotiate it, the time is such that we're going into the budget at the next round of sittings, and then we're into an election, so it would end this week, and it did.
We're almost out of time. Kelly O'Dwyer, your response?
Well, look, my response to that is, Richard can make all the jokes he likes about freedom of speech, but I agree with Andrea. I think it's incredibly important that we do have a free and democratic media, and it's critically important that we don't have government-controlled regulators that can influence what it is that people in the media can say. They have a job to do. We might not always like what it is that they say about us and about all sorts of other people, but they have a job to do in keeping us accountable, and I think that is critically important.